there's a legitimacy and an authority that comes from speaking to large organizations and being able to be the professional businesswoman. And if you really want to get paid for being yourself, you've got to be able to be a bit of a chameleon. You've got to be able to put yourself in lots of different environments, speak to lots of different audiences. Maybe you're more fun over here at the Female Entrepreneur event. Maybe you're a little bit more buttoned up over here. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you're like pretending to be someone else. You just have the adaptability. And that is really like the biggest thing. If you want to get paid to speak, you need to be adaptable. If you've ever looked at creators like Alex Hormozi or Cody Sanchez and thought, how on earth do they create so much content so consistently? The answer is actually pretty simple. They have teams. And that's the thing most people don't realize about visibility. At a certain level, it stops being about talent and starts being about infrastructure. Because the truth is, you don't need more ideas. You need more capacity. And that's exactly why I'm so excited to tell you about WorkPlay. For only $497 a month, WorkPlay gives you access to a global network of creators who essentially become your on-demand media team. Every quarter, you get a 7-hour brand shoot, photo or video, anywhere in the world. But what I love is that it's not just someone showing up with a camera. They help you think strategically about the content. They plan the shoot, they create the assets, and they help you actually get the content out into the world. Because let's be honest, most founders don't need to build an in-house media department. They just need access to one. And that's exactly what WorkPlay was designed to do. Visit the show notes to learn more about WorkPlay and what it could look like to finally have a media team behind your vision. All right, you guys, welcome back to Fame Ready, the podcast to show you that anything is possible, yes, including fame. I'm your host, top personal branding and public relations expert, Katrina Owens, and there's a hot button issue happening in the world right now, one that I'm really, really excited to talk about because it's something that I've been talking about with my clients, with the women inside the Fame Ready Entrepreneur Program, with women I'm having strategy calls with. And it's all about paid speaking engagements. And I know that I've done previous episodes on this. I think I have to imagine at this point they were quite a while ago. And if you've listened to that one, please let me know if you ended up going on to secure paid speaking engagements. I don't even know when that one was, but I'm here to bring back this topic again because it is just so important. And it's because lately I've heard a lot of shit that's pissed me off as it pertains to paid speaking specifically, because one thing that the online space, the coaching industry loves to do is convince us that there's only one way of doing things. And if you listened to my episode last week all about sales and uncovering my own sales process, I think it's really important to talk about the fact that when it comes to building a speaking career, what is typical in like the online space, very niche coaching industry is not really what's common in the rest of the world. And I'm talking about like the business world across industries. And one of the things that comes up a lot is this topic of like getting paid to speak. And one of the reasons why we think that we need like some sort of secret sauce, some sort of like glamorous sizzle reel, or all these like really special pieces, years of experience to be able to get paid to speak is because the coaching industry has kind of ruined it for all of us. And I say this because in the female entrepreneur space, and I can say this because I host a female entrepreneur event where my speakers at this point in time are not paid. Okay. I do this because I built my career on unpaid speaking and made a lot of money from it. I have made upwards of $20,000 on the back end of speaking at different events. So there is power to being on the right stage in front of the right audience who are your ideal clients and being able to motivate them to work with you. That's something I think every personal brand needs to be capable of. And I think just to clarify, when I talk about personal brands, I'm not talking about you as an influencer. I'm talking about you as a professional with a business where you do consulting or coaching, or you have different services that people would want to buy after seeing you speak about your expertise. And let's be real here, the female entrepreneur events, the budgets, they're a little bit slim. And I know people don't like this. And I'm just here to say, like, I think free speaking isn't a bad thing. I built a career doing it, but I also think that at some point, especially if you're starting to speak to more established audiences or large organizations or very, very large conferences, you can start to ask to get paid, to receive money for speaking at those events or whenever you really want to, right? But it's a choice. And this is the mistake that I see a lot of business owners make when they do want to start using their personal brand to get paid for more speaking engagements. They think they're either like not ready, not qualified yet, or they need something like really, really specific to be able to like land paid speaking opportunities. When the reality is, at some point in your career, you don't need to have like some sort of secret sauce or anything like that. You just need to have the willingness to ask for payment. Because here's the crazy thing. Today, I'm going to dive into like, where you can start to find different paid speaking engagements and what to look for and what you really need to have in place. But the thing that I want everybody to remember is like at some point, you can just ask for payment. So if someone asks you to speak at an event, I don't care like what event it is. If someone asks you to speak at an event and you want to get paid for that speaking engagement, you can simply say to them, I would love to speak at your event. My rate for this type of engagement is X, Y, and Z. The worst thing that someone says is, I'm so sorry, we don't have the budget for that. And maybe they try to negotiate with you. I think sometimes we are so scared of like losing an opportunity or losing a sale that we like play smaller than we should, even when it's like, damn, I really should like ask to get paid for that particular type of opportunity, given what it's going to take for me to prepare for it, what I'm going to need to have in place, all of that. When the reality is, you guys, at some point, you just need to bet on yourself and ask for payment and be okay with someone saying no. Typically, someone doesn't say no and then like take the opportunity away. If someone genuinely wants you to speak, they might negotiate what that rate is. Worst thing that they say is they don't have the budget, and then you can decide if you want to do it for free, if that's okay with you, or you just simply move on. And I think like why this is such a hot button issue is the fact that like on Threads in particular, and you guys know I have had a long journey with the social media platform Threads. It's just not my favorite because of the way people like really project everything. Like, if someone like really hates or disagrees with something, that's where they're going to go to project. And there are so many people that are like complaining about the fact that like people that speak for free are like ruining the paid speaking industry. And I actually think that those people don't understand that the speaking for free industry is actually not even the same as the paid speaking industry. And here's why. Most paid speaking engagements are going to be in the corporate realm. Okay. So maybe you're speaking within an organization to a large team, or even delivering a workshop to a smaller team. Or there are tons of industry conferences, professional conferences that serve hundreds of people that also pay their speakers and have budget for speakers, but those are operating in an entirely different industry and realm than like the female entrepreneur events that are literally put on by like your favorite women down the street from you. And that's what we need to really like realize. Like, I think every woman that hosts a female entrepreneur event in a perfect world would be able to bless each and every speaker with a big juicy paycheck. I know I would, but unfortunately my events at this point in time don't have the room to be able to do that. And at the same time, like kind of know your place a little bit too, right? Like I like to think that I'm creating Big Brand Energy Live as a room where women can go to gain the experience that they need, whether it's to speak or to do something else. Like when I put a woman on my stage at Big Brand Energy, for a lot of these women, especially with the 2026 event, it was, I mean, for one of our speakers on the topic of capital, Stacey Millard, that was her very first keynote ever. And she crushed it. But to be like, not to be a jackass, but like, I'm not paying someone to like gain the experience of doing their very first keynote ever, but I'm providing a stage and a venue and an opportunity for people to have that experience, which I think is really beautiful and needed, by the way, because if I think back to my like long 2025 self-funded world tour, okay, the self-funded world tour that I traveled across Canada and the United States to speak on stages across New York City, Los Angeles, Nashville, Toronto, like the amount of places I went last year to literally speak, I was not paid for, I don't think I was paid for any of those. And it covered all of my travel. Sometimes I even bought a ticket to the event. So why I share that is because I think people need to understand that, like any other business, speaking is also one. So, say I love to use the example, social media managers hate when I like use them as an example, but like it's always the easiest one for me because, that's how I started my business, was by offering social media management. No one's gonna hire a social media manager who's brand new, no social proof, no case studies, no testimonials, and pay them $5,000 a month to manage their social media if that person has no experience or justification on like, this is like why you should pay me $5,000. And so the same goes for speaking. If you have no proof of why you should get paid $5,000 to speak on a stage, there's no examples of your work, you don't have videos, you don't have any testimonials or reviews or content, then no one should be paying you that amount, right? So it's the free opportunities, the unpaid opportunities that are going to allow you to build that experience. And so there really is room for everything. Because here's the other distinction. When we get paid to speak, it's typically, so I'm going to make this distinction here. And this is a distinction that I've been making in my group coaching program and on some strategy calls, because it's really helped people realize that we generally need like multiple talks, or we need to decide what kind of audience we're really passionate about talking about. So bear with me here, because this is where like my brain has to like really fire on all cylinders. So on one side of the coin, we can talk about paid speaking in terms of corporate organizations. So let's use the example of one of the companies I would absolutely love to speak for one day, which is Coca-Cola. And so in this example, Coca-Cola hires me to speak maybe on their professional development day or for some kind of like employee initiative where I'm going to go in and I'm going to talk to their hundreds of team members on why it's important for their employees to build their personal brand and how they can align their personal brand with Coca-Cola's brand. And so it's a win-win for both the individual and the organization. And so in that example, I'm really showing you that the organization is benefiting from me getting their team members, their hundreds of employees, thousands of employees, excited about building their personal brand and sharing their experience working at Coca-Cola. That's like an internal marketing strategy that is really, 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 really effective. And so for me, pitching that to Coca-Cola, they can clearly see the value and the tangible outcome, the ROI that they could receive from doing this, right? So there's a couple things, right? So like employee retention is a great one, but also attracting top tier talent, because the more that you have like engaged employees sharing about their experience working with you at working with your company, the more you're going to attract top talent. So you're going to reduce the amount of time that you need to spend hiring. You'll retain your employees, because if employees are willing to celebrate your company and align themselves on the internet, obviously you're going to like keep people there longer because they're enjoying their time. And then thirdly, this is a marketing strategy. This is a very organic marketing strategy that maybe allows Coca-Cola to not spend as much on paid advertising or something else, because now they're using their employees as people to kind of tout their brand for them. And so that's the value proposition that I'm offering Coca-Cola to speak in front of their teams. So for each and every one of you that wants to pitch organizations, whether it's to do large keynotes in front of very large organizations, or whether it's smaller workshops, you need to be able to articulate like, what is the benefit to the company for bringing you in and paying for you? This is a very, very lucrative avenue. You can get paid a significant amount as well as get your travel fees covered and all of that. So that's one direction. One of the things I've learned over the years is that extraordinary things happen when ambitious women get in the same room. Not because someone gives them a magic strategy, but because they're reminded of what's possible. And that's exactly why I created Big Brand Energy Live. It's the room where women come to think bigger, dream bigger, and finally give themselves permission to pursue the goals they've been quietly carrying around for years. Since attending Big Brand Energy 2026, women from our community have launched sold-out retreats, secured brand partnerships, landed international speaking engagements, started their own communities, hosted events, written books, the list goes on. They've all pursued opportunities that they once believed were out of reach. And not because the event changed their lives, but because it reminded them that they were capable of changing their own. Big Brand Energy Live returns in 2027 as a 2-day experience in Metro Vancouver, Canada, and it's designed to help you expand your vision and take action on it. Right now, the summer presale tickets are available at 50% off regular price, with flexible payment plans available too. If you're ready to spend 2 days in a room where anything feels possible, I'd love for you to join us. Visit the show notes to grab your presale ticket, and I cannot wait to see you there. The other direction is industry conferences. So I'm talking about really large scale, like let's say there's like real estate conferences or, conferences for dentists. Like these really big conventions are usually multiple days. They're usually hosted in like very, very big cities because they attract people from all over the world. A great example of this is my dad used to work for Sherwin-Williams, like the paint company. He worked in the automotive division. So he was always going to like Nashville, Orlando, Vegas, Reno, places where people were flying in from all over because these conferences and conventions were so big. Those are conferences and conventions that also have budget for speakers. Now, in this case, this is where that kind of professional speaking ability, having a sizzle reel, having some of these other pieces become important. Because at the same time, you're going to get paid to speak. It's going to come out of the event budget. Maybe you're not speaking on behalf of a very specific organization like Coca-Cola who needs to see an ROI, but you are bringing some sort of like star power, impact, filling a need for that event or convention or conference. That's really, really impactful. So that's also a different talk, by the way, because so if I'm using the example of me, if I'm doing a talk in front of that audience, so say I'm at a convention for dentists. So that convention isn't like speaking to employees at Coca-Cola, right? If I'm at this convention for dentists, all of these dentists are there, they all like independently have their practices. And so I'm going to speak more broadly about probably visibility or personal branding and why that's important to the dentists in the room and building their practices. And so that convention sees value in the expertise that I'm bringing. They have a speaker budget. I obviously don't know what that is when I'm pitching, but they are going to allocate funds based on how much experience someone has, how much testimonial someone has, that sort of thing. So that's the other side of paid speaking. So do you see how there's kind of two different lanes? And in those two different lanes, there are so many events, industries, organizations. Like I'm even thinking about the very first paid speaking engagement I ever did was a very, very small corporate executive workshop, which I call like executive presence, where I was literally talking about like, here's how to use LinkedIn to build up your presence in line with the not-for-profit that you're at. And I actually even included a little bit of coaching for each of the executives after that. And that organization, that not-for-profit, paid for that because they saw the value in having a more public presence for all of their executive team members. So that's that. And so why I wanted to really break that down is because I heard something the other day that pissed me right off. So I was talking to one of my clients who basically said to me that someone had said to them, how are you going to get paid to speak when you don't have an offer? Oh, and this is where I'm like, God, the coaching industry has ruined us. And I was just saying this on a strategy call that I was on before this, because we get stuck in this language of offer building. Okay. I want to make this really clear. This is not a podcast for like coaches specifically. Like I know that I call myself a PR personal branding coach. That is not what I ever set out to be. I always kind of felt more in line with the title consultant. But we use language like offer building or offer suite in the coaching realm when that really isn't like widely used. Like the dentists don't know what their offers are. Their dentists know what services they offer. And so this client of mine who was told this bad information, basically someone who's like in the online space, and that's their world, which is great, saw my client who is really not of the online coaching industry. She has a very professional services-based business. Was like all of a sudden like, oh, I guess I can't get paid to speak because I don't have an offer. So Katrina, help me build an offer so I can like, quote unquote, get paid to speak. And I'm like, honey, love of my life, getting paid to speak because you pick up clients at the end is not getting paid to speak. When I talk about getting paid to speak, I'm talking about you are getting a paycheck for doing the speaking engagement. So it doesn't matter if you sign clients off the back end. And this is where I think the coaching industry has entirely lost the plot on this whole thing, because we think that if we don't have an offer and we can't make sales on the back end, then we can't speak on stage, which is insane, because professional speaking is a very, very lucrative industry. It's been around for years. Like how many of you out there, like, were in high school or you'd have different assemblies and people would come speak at your assemblies. Like those are paid speaking engagements, people. Keynote speaking has been around for like far longer than the online space has, but because one is much louder and much more like, I don't know, aesthetic, or like they try to make it look so glamorous, we act like the other thing doesn't exist. And that's just bullshit. So I said to my client, absolutely not. You do not need an offer, because that would take away from like what you're actually trying to build. And this is a woman who works in an industry where she has seen a lot of success. And it's a very, very popular industry where she could literally go to all of the different insurance brokerages and actually teach them the same workshop that she is an expert in and get paid to do it. She doesn't have to have an offer on the back end of that. She can go charge $2,000, $3,000, $5,000, $10,000 to do these workshops. And now she's getting paid to do that. She doesn't have to worry about signing clients on the back end of any of that. And so that really is for me the most important distinction. And I think, it's really interesting. I don't typically work primarily with business coaches. Like I work with clients across the board, interior designers, realtors, marketing agency owners, real estate development executives, women in sports, like lots of financial services, artists. Those are the women that I typically work with, and men, because there are men on those client rosters too. And the reason why I don't generally find myself working with a lot of business coaches is because the business coach gets stuck in the offer suite. But also at the same time, there's a whole world of like business consulting. It just means that you've got to be able to like find a niche that you're able to express from a professional perspective. The Katrina Owens that's wearing like red sequin crop tops at Big Brand Energy Live is not the corporate Katrina that's going into organizations. Yeah, both can exist, but that's why I built my brand this way. So like there are those fun, glamorous, sparkly moments that build my audience so I can have listeners for this podcast, so I can host events and sell them out, so I can have an audience that brand partners want to get involved in. Like there's that, but there's a legitimacy and an authority that comes from speaking to large organizations and being able to be the professional businesswoman. And I mean, I think some people out there that's probably going to have a problem with that, but that's just how the world works, my friends. Like, if you really want to get paid for being yourself, you've got to be able to be a bit of a chameleon. You've got to be able to put yourself in lots of different environments, speak to lots of different audiences. Maybe you're more fun over here at the female entrepreneur event. Maybe you're a little bit more buttoned up over here. That's okay. It doesn't mean that you're like pretending to be someone else. You just have the adaptability. And that is really like the biggest thing. If you want to get paid to speak, you need to be adaptable. Obviously, like in an ideal world, you have your set speaking topics. You're not necessarily like reinventing the wheel every single time. Actually, we had a really, really great guest expert inside the Fame Ready Entrepreneur program about a month ago, Heather Sager. She's a speaking coach who talked about your strategic signature talk. And that was a really, really helpful presentation for so many of the women inside the program, because they're starting to learn, okay, this is like what I need to have in place for like my strategic signature talk that I want to do. But even in like working with Heather, her walking us through this process, there were certain circumstances where some of the women in the program were going to have 2 different talks that they were going to deliver. And that's kind of like me too right now. Like I'm really in transition. It's crazy. In October, I'm speaking at a big event that I'm really excited about. Some of you already know, but there has not been like a public announcement yet. And I like to like keep things quiet till the public announcement. I'm going to tell you guys, I have no idea what I'm going to say on that stage because I've been in transition. I've done a talk before called the Fame Formula, which is super strong. That I've like kind of started to get away from sharing. I mean, I've done it so many times. People love it. It just doesn't quite feel like me anymore. The talk that I did at Big Brand Energy Live was called The 7 Deadly Sins of Visibility, and that was a banger. But I don't know if that kind of talk works outside of the big brand energy realm. Like a friend of mine was like, maybe that's just a talk you give at Big Brand Energy and you build on it every single year. And I kind of liked that idea because it really is so specific to me. So I'm in this transition of like, what is the personal branding PR talk that I'm going to give to these female entrepreneur audiences, in this next era of my business? I mean, I'm sure it's probably linked somewhere along the lines to the 6-figure personal brand and this idea of your personal brand isn't becoming someone else. It's about getting paid for being yourself. And now that I'm saying that out loud, maybe I just had a breakthrough. Because that's probably where that topic lives. And like I said, that's not the topic I'm going to go pitch to Coca-Cola. Coca-Cola has the talk that I would give to those employees or those team members. But yeah, now I have got things to think about. Okay, before we go, the question I get all the time is, where do I find paid speaking engagements? And the biggest thing, like if you really want to make a go at your speaking career and you really want to build it, you've got to be really dedicated to pitching. It was really cute, actually. I was just on a strategy call with a woman who took one of the very first iterations of 5 Weeks Still Famous, which is like my PR and personal branding course that lives inside the Fame Ready Entrepreneur program now. But during that course, I had said to the students enrolled at the time, like, dedicate an hour every week. It's like your PR power hour. And in that week, that's when you're going to source opportunities. That's when you're going to pitch to opportunities. That way, like, you're like gaining traction on your visibility and like taking great strides towards it every single week. And you're not just like trying to like, do like a whole day of it, like sporadically, which really doesn't move the needle. Like we need consistency when it comes to pitching. Typically when we're pitching, we also need to send a high volume of pitches because there is a little bit of like luck and randomness built into pitching. So I'm just going to read because I did a post on this. Let's see if I still have the screenshot. Okay, I posted it in Circle. So I'm just going to read you a couple of places where you can find paid speaking opportunities. And the biggest thing here is that I want to remind you, speaking, like paid speaking opportunities are generally not advertising themselves as this is a paid speaking opportunity. I mean, some of them are, but this goes back to the conversation we are having at the beginning of the podcast. At some point, it's up to you to advocate for yourself and for you to say, I want to get paid for this. This is what my rate is. So, some of the places I love. So, Leads by Shell. Shell is spelled Chelle. I always find it funny when I promote this one because this is like someone who, on some level, is probably a competitor of mine, but like I will never create a resource like this. She eventually has this resource. It's paid. I think it comes about to like $60 Canadian per month, but it's a spreadsheet that she updates every single week with industry conferences and organizations and the contact info, like all of them across North America, basically. And so that's a really good place to start, like seeing what opportunities are out there. And it just gives you a feel for like, okay, like, you know, how would I speak to this type of audience? And, if you're trying to like create a pitch or a talk to a very specific type of audience, it's generally a sign, like if it's feeling hard, it's generally a sign that like maybe that's not the audience that you should be talking to, and like maybe don't force it, right? So Leads by Shell is a great one. Speaker Hub, I can't say I've actually used before, but it is another paid platform, and it kind of came up in my research, and it has lots of great testimonials. So when it comes to paid platforms, I've said this in previous episodes too, when we talk about like investing in the different platforms that you can get to like see what podcasts are out there. I like generally don't recommend for any of these that you keep like a running, that you like have an ongoing like subscription, because you just don't need it. Like for me at this point, I will never like really actively pitch myself to like podcasts as a volume game. Now I go on podcasts when I'm invited. Maybe there's like a really great industry podcast that I really want to be on, so I'll help establish authority. That's different than just like having access to like do research and things like that. So same with some of these platforms, like maybe just invest in one and really make sure you're using it to its fullest before you go like signing up for all of these. Another one is Sessionize. This is one I've been on before. So on Sessionize, you create a profile and you can also see like all of the conferences looking for speakers. And then Conference Monkey is also one. So those are like some great examples of where you can start. Obviously, from there, there's so much research that you can do. I mean, I really encourage people to do their own research, like chambers of commerce, industry associations, employee resource groups, which are called like ERGs. Those are all really good places to also look for like paid speaking, or like just starting to do some cold pitching to organizations. Um, so yeah, that is that. And actually, one last thing to add, because if you've listened to this podcast for a long time, you'll know that one of the strategies when it comes to like pitching female entrepreneur events that's worked, or even like female entrepreneur podcasts, it works for a lot of my clients, is you maybe send a pitch and then you follow up with like a voice note and an introduction. When it comes to some of these larger organizations, like, yes, is it great to like have an in and like have a relationship, make the introduction? Of course. But at the same time, um, know that if you're like cold messaging someone on LinkedIn because you applied to their conference and you're like kind of just doing it to like check a box, that's not really the vibe. Like when we do the voice note follow up after a pitch, it's because we're like trying to like build a relationship. And so with some of these like large industry organizations and really large conferences, I mean, God, a lot of the people that work in these roles don't even have an active LinkedIn presence. So they might not even see it. So in those cases, it's about having a really, really strong application, a pitch, and obviously a personal brand presence. So Let me know if this resonated. This was like one of those episodes that I felt like I had to get off my chest because I just feel like there's so much bad information going on right now. I feel like people are pissed off that they're like not getting paid to speak, but they're looking in the wrong places. Other people are just disseminating bad information, and that stops here. Stops here on Fame Ready. So if you liked this podcast, please rate and review this podcast wherever you listen, on Apple, on Spotify. Please follow me over on Instagram at Katrina Owens PR. You can follow the podcast on Instagram, Get Fame Ready. We're also on YouTube if you like to watch and, see me talk about this stuff. That's where you can find me. But thanks so much, you guys. I'm so excited to talk to you all next week. And till then, toodles.